Welcome to the Artificial Future Podcast. This is the AI podcast from the Gruber Companies. I'm Pete Gruber. The image behind me is a mid-journey rendition of an AI pathogen. And the reason I wanted that back there was the first item is some concerns about how AI could be used in the world of medicine, but destructively. And I guess that would be an option. But an interesting thing about this image is when I first asked for an AI pathogen, the message coming back was, we're sorry, this is against terms of agreement or something like that. It wouldn't let me do it. So I figured, well, let me ask for an image of, and this is what I came up with. This morning, I wanted to get the precise wording of the response that I got when I violated the terms of agreement. And it turns out it rendered it just fine. I said AI pathogen. And if you can bring that up, Jesse, it is called AI pathogen in the images folder. So pretty scary looking, once he brings it up, to me anyway. It looks like a definite pathogen, little things in bubbles and with pinchers. And there we go. One other one, this is the one that is kind of a close-up of what AI thinks a pathogen that could damage a human being or life forms in general. The next one is the AI-generated pathogen.
That one is called AI pathogen. What's the other one called?
Pete Gruber image of AI-generated pathogen. That's probably a PNG file also in the image folder. So the reason I'm bringing, there we go. There you go. It looks pretty wet. It looks pretty fluid. And I suppose if something like that is streaming in your body, it may not be beneficial. But anyway, pretty scary stuff. So the reason I'm bringing all this up for you guys is Mustafa Suleyman, who is a former Google executive who helped pioneer the company's foray into AI, is voicing concerns that technology will be used to create more lethal pandemics. Mustafa was the co-founder and former head of the applied AI at Google's DeepMind. And he said that the use of AI will enable humans to access information with potentially deadly consequences. He said that the darkest scenario is, let me get this in here, dial it up here. The darkest scenario is that people will experiment with pathogens, engineered synthetic pathogens even, that might end up accidentally or intentionally being more transmissible. They can spread faster. They can be made more lethal. Legal, of course, yes. Certainly not legal. They can cause more harm or potentially kill, just like the pandemic. So he adds that he's calling for tighter regulations on AI software. Now, every time I hear this phrase, we need more guardrails, we need tighter regulations, it's pretty broad-based comments without anyone giving any concrete plan for how to achieve this or whether it's even achievable. Now, Suleiman's biggest fear is that within the next 5 years, he said, some whiz kid in Russia could genetically engineer a pathogen and unleash it so as to trigger a pandemic that's more lethal than anything the world has ever seen so far. Now, why he picked a kid in Russia is beyond me, but there's definitely some craziness going on there right now, and maybe that was his strategy. He said, that's where we need containment. We have to limit access to the tools and to the know-how to carry out that kind of experimentation. So that's the closest thing we get to a plan or some sort of a strategy to put some brakes and put some curbs on AI. Looks like we have a visitor from Instagram, Fadi BRKT. He says, hello from Beirut, Lebanon. Thank you and welcome. Thanks for joining us. By the way, one of the owners of the 3 Chinese roadsters is from Jordan, and he brought us some gifts when the cars arrived last week. And it turns out that they were cookies from Jordan. And I got to tell you, these were the best cookies I have ever eaten. There are a few of them, some boxes over at Gruber Motor Company, and I think the staff over there shares my enthusiasm. They were kind of like a baklava cookie made with a lot of different types of nuts, but mostly pistachios. Very well done, by the way. We have from LinkedIn, we have Borjan Torchani chiming in saying hello. Again, well, thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning when I'm sure that most of us have some more meaningful things to do than sit here and listen to a podcast, although we're going to make this interesting. YouTube, Fabian Lamaistra says, hey guys, I love the concept of this podcast, but is there any way you can do a post-production 10-minute version of it? I think you would get more viewers with something easier to digest. Jesse, you're here with me. What do you think of that plan?
Well, I mean, this is a podcast, and podcasts are long-form content by just their nature. But what we do for people that want to come back and digest it in pieces is we put the timestamps on there so you can see different sections and come to watch what section you want when you want. I can work with our team though and see if we can get like a highlights clip of each episode or something. We can maybe implement that in the future.
And these are still evolving. I can't see the thumbnail right now, but I think this is only session number 15 or something like that. So we're going to have many more in the future and dial in the what our audience prefers. But thanks for giving us that suggestion, Fabian. So one of the things I wanted to share with you this morning was, and this was an interesting quote. And this is from a Twitter visitor to our site, actually. He says, one thing that keeps me awake at night is the speed of thought. Humans being really slow. He says, imagine the time needed to share a 1,000-page math book with someone else and understand it. He says, then AI comes along and exchanges and understands perfectly the information in that book in 1,000th of a second. And that will be what we will be up against if regulators do not do something. And again, now we're getting into we need to control it. It's dangerous. He continues, he says, also, the military of any given country will be building AI robots and systems designed to kill. Humans must see this now and put safety measures in place. Well, again, I go back to how do we control some of these nefarious type governments like North Korea, Russia, who could care less about what impact they're having on the Western world or the rest of humanity. It's going to be a tall order to attempt to put anything in or to curb any of this. So for those of you that are in the business of stealing someone's identity, it turns out AI just made it easier for you. Now, what I'm talking about there is, if you're on Facebook, for example, every month or so, one of my friends pops up and he is sending me a friend request. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been a friend of his for 5-10 years on Facebook. Why is he doing this again? Only to realize, of course, someone has stolen his identity, his picture. And when you go to the number of friends that they have, it's typically a very tiny number, 5, 10, 20 or so. So I realized somebody got hacked and somebody's identity is being stolen. Well, AI has just made it easier. There's a website, and it's all in the URL. If you type in thispersondoesnotexist.com, you'll get to a website where there is an algorithm that was developed by NVIDIA, of all people. It's called StyleGAN, G-A-N. It's an algorithm that allows for the generation of random people's faces. The algorithm, this algorithm is based on a pre-trained model which is capable of finding hidden factors of variation, such as position of a face, identity, and more than 100 parameters, which of course is very tiny right now. As this gains some speed, that number of parameters will increase exponentially. So I tried this, and the faces that it rendered are believable. Once in a while, you would get an eye that's maybe focused in the wrong direction, but in general, these faces were, quite believable. And if you were exposed to that, it'd be very difficult for you to apply the Turing test and, determine whether this was a robot, AI generated, or if this was a real human. Looks like we've got a bunch of comments coming in from LinkedIn. Brandon Nozaki Miller says, AI is like a fine katana. A skilled wielder can both attack and parry. Proper trainers are required as well. Excellent. That's an excellent description of some martial arts language. But you're right, AI is quite a bit more than what we're expecting at this point, and will continue to be, I'm sure. TikTok, Muppet Pooh says, good morning. Trucks and tractors have always been synonymous to some degree or another. Do you think that we will see tractor implements on the electric trucks moving forward? As a winery, we've been considering the cross-use. John Deere is actually moving into the EV space, and I get notifications from them once in a while. They are very much developing EV-type farm equipment, which of course makes perfect sense. I don't think you're going to get some of the mainstream EV auto manufacturers to jump into that niche market because they're heavily focused on mainstream product right now. Down the road, once they're extremely profitable, they've got all of their major development challenges out of the way, like Tesla's Cybertruck, for example, that everyone's waiting for, or the second generation Tesla Roadster. I can't imagine that some of these manufacturers will indulge in making niche vehicles or broadening the type of markets that they're in. But for now, it may just be that the OEMs that are in that business already, like John Deere, will be the ones moving into that space. LinkedIn, Brandon Nozaki Miller again says, do you think there should be a rule law put in place now for the eventual time that AI becomes sentient? Or has someday developed to a point significantly close to that sentience that we cannot discern the difference, which guarantees the freedom from human control if requested? My personal opinion is that sentience is already there. Some of these things are typically withheld from the general public for a number of solid reasons. But as sentience, of course, moves into AI, and it's most likely already there, human involvement will decline. And, basically the robots will be building robots at some point in time. He also adds, I think putting this rule in place now would enable a better relationship with the new type of being we have created, lest we repeat the brutal and savage battles for freedom that have ensued in humanity's past amongst our own people. Good point. My optimistic vision of AI integrating into humanity is that a highly intelligent, much more intelligent species, or call it life form, call it entity, whatever you want to call it, is not going to indulge in the human weaknesses that have caused the problems that society and mankind has been suffering for
Problem with that,
thousands
though,
of
Pete,
years.
is it's using our training data.
Correct, right?
So it's only ever going to be based on the data that we feed it.
But as sentience moves into AI, if it's not already there, would it not reevaluate that training data?
But to reevaluate that data, it would use its knowledge of that data to reevaluate that data. It would never have knowledge outside of the knowledge that we give it. It's not going to just create its own knowledge, essentially.
All right. Well,
how would it create its own knowledge, I guess, is the question. If we think that it's, even if it were to become sentient, all it ever knows, the same as a child at some point becomes self-aware. All it ever has is the information of its surroundings and what it's been fed its whole life, right?
yeah.
It doesn't become some higher being outside of the existence that we already experience.
Now, there's a rabbit hole. Let's go into the full self-driving capability that we know that Tesla is currently switching gears on. Instead of the rule-based full self-driving and hundreds of thousands of lines of code determining how cars behave on the road during full self-driving. They have taken videos and millions of bits of information of the best drivers out there, and then use that to train full self-driving. One of the things they ran into was that the best drivers, even the best, break traffic laws. When it comes to stop signs, for example, nobody really comes to a complete stop. Now, in the case of AI, which is now using and is trying to mimic the best drivers out there that are, in this case, breaking that law, with sentience, at some point, AI would be able to say, you know what, I'm fully aware what the law is. I'm also aware what we're mimicking, and we can make an informed decision to change that. Either comply with the traffic laws.
Yeah. That's very true.
So again, it's definitely a rabbit hole. If any of you folks have any kind of thoughts and ideas on this, we'd love to hear from you. Looks like YouTube. Highlander is chiming in. He says, lunchtime and kindness is still free. Absolutely. Postscript to the last comment that we read, he said, I want to post this question on LinkedIn as well, but I'm not even sure about the ethics of postulating such a question. Well, at this point, I think most of the rules are being reevaluated, so I wouldn't worry about the ethical considerations of the question. What we're attempting to do here is explore different ideologies and different thoughts and different plans for AI. LinkedIn, Brandon Nazaki Miller says, LLAMA2 was quite rude before it shut itself down. You know anything about that, Jesse?
Yeah, Llama 2. It's just an early type of neural network, I believe. But
so it was rude because it was mimicking humans?
Yeah, I mean, that's all that we've seen so far really is just mimicking as far as at least what's been released to the public. But
yeah, maybe it was watching some George Carlin skits, and it wasn't politically correct, which actually would be fun. We're gonna get into that here shortly, by the way. A bunch of these types of artists now are up in arms about AI's potential plagiarism of their acts. But continuing with this website, thispersondoesnotexist.com, they say that it works by adjusting the image style and passing each convolutional layer one after the other, which gives them precise control of the image generation process. This algorithm is also used to train and produce images of high quality with a balance between quality and interpolation capabilities. You can also, by the way, find the source code on GitHub, for those of you that want to dig into it further, along with a new data set available in the public domain since 2019. Furthermore, they say StyleGAN 2 was introduced in 2020. All right. Let's see if we've got any other. Niles is joining us from Denmark. Welcome, Niles. He says, well, what is knowledge? It is simple facts, but also conclusions equals a new fact. Right, analyzing that no human knows because there is too much data to survey. Well, now we get into the realm again of AI, which there's no such thing as too much data. It can juggle it all. It kind of works in parallel mode versus serial mode like humans, where we do one thing at a time and draw conclusions. And the AI, it's all available instantly.
Well, the one thing that we still have, though, is a limitation on compute power. So that would mean like all the computers in the world, even if they're all connected, there's still a limit to what they can do. What's really going to change things, especially with AI, is when supercomputing becomes a thing. When we can get room temperature superconducting happening and do actual quantum computing, the next level computing. That's when we're going to really see things that are no longer within the realm of the human capability, right?
Without any limitations because of hardware.
Yeah. Right now, even if you connected every computer on Earth, there's still going to be that limit. One quantum computer would surpass all of that. So that's when I think, the AI becoming something beyond us will actually happen.
Fascinating. Speaking about that, Tesla's new foray into full self-driving,
Hmm.
using billions of video clips, which, by the way, puts them in a unique position. If you think about it, what other EV manufacturer or ICE manufacturer has been collecting driving data at the exponential rate that Tesla is?
The only one that I know of is Waymo, but I don't
Mhm.
think they're still even remotely close. But I think it's been 13 or 14 years they've
Mhm.
been collecting data here in Chandler, Arizona, doing their tests.
Right, right. Usually single vehicle, whereas with Tesla, it's the installed base, which is now, well over 1 million. So the thing that intrigued me about this is um, there's always been concern that your home-based Alexa is continuously listening to what's going on in your house. And of course, they go to great lengths to assure you, oh, that's not the case. It's not until
Or
you prompt
Siri,
it, or Siri.
or
Yeah,
any of
yeah,
those.
right, right. Now, think about this. If this data is truly available, and again, that's fed into AI, just think about what the world now of psychoanalysis would what the benefit would be, because you would have such a huge cross section of home-based cultural issues and data that you could assimilate. And the what ifs. How do families solve certain types of problems? What kind of conversations do they have at the dinner table? What happens when an argument ensues? What are the percentages? What's the range? That type of data could definitely revolutionize certain industries, kind of like full self-driving, where instead of
Yeah,
rule-based stuff, they're going to simply move to mimicking, or by simply mimicking human behavior.
that's the saying nowadays, right? The data is the new gold, right? Gold rush.
It is the new, it used to be oil, they were saying, and that was one of the
Hmm.
concerns, was that the Saudis are now moving into data mining. Um,
Google's been doing that for a long time. There are a couple of companies I've worked for in the past specifically kept us on Microsoft Office, an older version of Microsoft Office. Even though it was cheaper to move to Google, they have their whole suite of products for email and business documents, all that stuff. The fine print in that is if you're using the Google Cloud, they have the right to mine all of your business data.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's very interesting how they get around all of that. It's kind of the whole thing of every time there's an update on your phone, you have to scroll through pages and pages and just hit I accept. And you're not actually reading what you're accepting or agreeing to.
Hmm.
That becomes a serious thing. But this is all very Big Brother ish when we start talking about data. It's kind of a
There's a
scary
term.
thing.
Yeah, there's a term from the last century. I remember somebody on Facebook posting some pictures at one point in time and attempting to put caveats on it and say, these are not reproducible. Please do not copy these. They are the property of X. And somebody pointed out, buddy, by the time you've posted it on Facebook, you've relinquished all those rights.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all already out there.
So here's one that excited me regarding AI. There's a software program called Lemonade, and it's Lemon, AIDE, with an E at the end. This is a software, or this is an application. It's called Lemonade Seeds, and it is a melody MIDI generator that outputs 4-bar loops that are intended to be dragged into your DAW of choice. A DAW, by the way, is a digital audio workstation. It's a musician term, and it covers every part of the music making process, from recording to digital audio, through creating beats and melodies in virtual instruments, all the way to adding effects to make everything sound great and perfecting your final mix of all of the tracks. And as I've pointed out before, AI is getting into smell. You have 400 receptors in the human nose that are able to detect smells on the molecular level. AI has many more receptors. And again, connected with a biofeedback method to AI, it may just be able to dial in your favorite fragrance much better than your nose can. Same with music. I've often thought, I make playlists and I struggle all the time. Oh, I forgot about that band. I used to like that, or whatever, right? Well, with AI connected to something like this Lemonade app, it would actually, with a biofeedback method, would be able to determine what gets your juices going the most, what kind of music, what kind of beats, what kind of melodies, what kind of chord structure, all of that.
This is another scary part of Big Brother, Pete. Now you're talking about giving away people's bodily information.
Well, and it will most likely, being AI, not need to be concerned about plagiarizing someone else's work or copyright issues because it's going to create its own. And it most likely will be better than the types of music that you already like, since it is connected to you and, it's dialing precisely like a heat-seeking missile exactly what you like. So they go on, they say, you can interact with our state-of-the-art AI algorithms through selecting key, scales, and moods. Moods, there you go. We will quickly be expanding this to even more interactivity to allow you to really get the idea in your head and into your DAW as quickly as possible. So look this up, Lemonade with an E at the end, Seeds. Now they go on and they now attempt to appease the potential backlash from the artists. And they say, what does ethical AI mean? They say, from our long-term vision to our everyday decisions, we are driven and guided by our values rooted in ethical AI. More specifically, it means we will never aim to replace musicians. Bullshit. All right, but anyway, they're saying the right things. Our goal with the products we build is to empower artists to create and push past creative limits. Now that makes sense. And I think any artist with powerful tools like this is going to create on a completely new level. They say, since the founders of Lemonade are artists themselves, we understand when AI is going too far in the creative process, and we will intentionally never do too much that an artist truly should be doing. Now, that's a vague term. I'm not sure quite what they're saying there, but they're definitely attempting to appease the potential backlash and the concerns and fears. Number two in this article is our algorithms have a farm-to-table feel. We know and have received consent to train our algorithm from our network of family and friend producers who contributed their data voluntarily to help shape the future. Later on, we'll talk about artists that are not happy about AI allegedly plagiarizing their art, their creativity, and their work. They continue, we confidently boast not even one single line in our training data set is scraped from the web. It's all consent cleared. It's all consent cleared the way that it should be. All right, we got a bunch of comments coming in. YouTube Highlander, welcome Highlander. He says, any news on how Ford develops its self-driving? My take on this is if Ford can survive the UAW attack, if they can survive, the smartest thing for any of these incumbents to do is to license Tesla's technology and forget about trying to develop their own FSD, which is probably pretty first grade, amateur approach at this point. All right. What else do we have here? Oh, Niles is saying, I agree that AI can be constrained by limited access to data by labeling. But other than that, aren't we meat computers ourselves? Good point. Here's someone we haven't seen in a while, Van Goat Wagon from TikTok. He says Tesla is getting the Big Brother tag from people in the EV industry too. Well, of course, anybody that's on the forefront of these kinds of radical new technologies is definitely going to be seen as a connection to that term Big Brother. Niles from Denmark says AI itself cannot smell. It needs physical sensors, a whole field that many have worked on for years. The problem being to get smells into electronic form, or like you said earlier, labeling, identification and labeling. Looks like LinkedIn, Brandon Nazaki Miller says, driving what a person is currently experiencing is dangerous. We must also consider when people want to change their direction. A spiraling person might easily like sad music or dramas, but may need positive messages to get out of their current trajectory, much like society pre-COVID. I've got some interesting concepts coming in. Facebook, Stephen James Higginbotham says, I used to be a master technician for Chrysler, but turned out I became severely allergic to a metal called nickel. I like the videos, fun to watch, since I can't touch metal anymore. Now that's an interesting twist. I did not know that there was such a thing. Hope that everything turns out well for you. Instagram, 117 MC Spartan sends us 4 hearts. Thank you. Highlander says, translate the smells into a color scale. Ford is next to license it from Tesla FSD, that 8S. Translating smells into color scale. Yeah, I mean, you can convert it to anything you want. Any of our auditory sensors, wouldn't that be cool? If you take what we normally perceive at one level of sensory input and convert it to another sensory input, would that be more efficient? Would we like that better? And how quickly could we learn that? Niall says, by labeling, I meant watermarking AI-generated content. And that, of course, might get us around some of these copyright infringement issues. All right. Google is releasing new AI software called Gemini. And it has, at this point, released some beta versions, apparently, to select companies with early access to this conversational AI software. The goal of this is to rival OpenAI's GPT-4 model. Gemini comprises large language models that power chatbots, text summarization, and original content generation. Now, Google is currently offering developers access to a relatively large version of Gemini and plans to make it available through Google Cloud Vertex AI. It is said to be a multimodal language model with a similar number of training parameters as ChatGPT-4. So it looks like OpenAI may have some competition here shortly. Salesforce, which is a good CRM package, and it looks like they're definitely taking advantage of the AI explosion. They have a chain of density prompt that aims to improve AI summaries by packing more info into fewer words. It's called COD. It involves iterative summary creation and revisions, resulting in more abstract, coherent, and unbiased summaries. So, yeah.
I mean, we're finally going to be able to talk you into getting Salesforce now that it has AI built into it.
Well, we'll talk about that. I think we just covered that in the last meeting. The first pass, of course, we're going to integrate AI tools into the existing packages that we have from accounting to CRM. And of course, provide this kind of power at the desktop in our call centers. So this program that Salesforce is using was tested on 100 news articles from CNS to Daily Mail, and summaries created after about 3 iterations were rated the highest by human reviewers. So this complex prompt offers a promising method for improving the quality of AI-generated article summaries, with the potential to advance the field of summarization. All right, Ingemar is joining us. Thanks for joining us, Ingemar. Hope the book sales are doing well. Ingemar has written an AI book available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, I believe. If Jesse isn't too busy typing, maybe he'll throw up a picture of the book here shortly. But Sunday mornings, by the way, it's just me and Jesse, and there's a lot of typing that's constantly going on over there. TikTok, Van Goatwagon says, people with autism, some see numbers as colors. Good point. Imagine the AI knowing how the autistic brain works. How is the, okay. That, of course, is going to, again, take AI into the medical field. And remember, it goes beyond just simply communicating with autistic brains or people, and making communication more streamlined and more efficient. What I'm excited about is AI moving into a translation package for non-humans, animals. Wouldn't it be cool if AI can decode the subtle signals that your pets are sending you and develop a language that eventually allows you to have a rudimentary or even a sophisticated language model that you could communicate with non-humans with?
I've got his website coming up.
Okay, perfect. We'll throw that on the image in the back. There we go. The Future is Electric. That was the first book which we became familiar with about EVs. And then there's another book that was written by Ingmar regarding AI. There we go, AI Enlightenment. And you know, it's fascinating that this book also used AI in the creation of the book. And in the book, actually, Ingmar does talk about that at some length. So for those of you interested, pick up the book. It's a new era, as he says, of artificial ingenuity. Van Goat Wagon, people with autism. We did that already. Okay, we're good. So moving along here, is ChatGPT a better entrepreneur than most? Well, an experiment done by Wharton professor Christian Turwich, he says ChatGPT-4 showcased its ability to outperform MBA students in generating new product ideas, doing so more efficiently and cost-effectively. This study involved both MBA students and ChatGPT, creating ideas for products targeting college students under $50, with ChatGPT not only producing more ideas in a shorter time, of course, but also demonstrating higher purchase probability and preference for seeded ideas. So this professor advocates using generative AI as a creative co-pilot, facilitating innovation and idea generation across various domains. We're excited about the impact that AI is going to have in augmentation for a number of different disciplines, such as medical science, doctors, researchers, attorneys, doing the fact-checking. It's not going to make paralegals obsolete or researchers, but it definitely has some strengths that some of these various professions would benefit from by augmentation. All right, here's another one. Artificial intelligence in urban planning and design. The article says that AI can already design better cities than humans. And this is from research in China, from Tsinghua University, which developed an AI system that outperformed human being designs by 50% in terms of, and this is again, designing better cities, access to services, access to green spaces, and traffic levels. The AI, trained for just 2 days, swiftly handled tasks that would take human planners up to 100 minutes, enabling urban planners to focus on more complex, human-centric aspects of design. And of course, AI was able to do this in seconds versus the 100 minutes that the human planners were involved in. They say that AI is envisioned as an assistant to human planners, with human experts reviewing and optimizing AI-generated concepts based on community feedback for more efficient, sustainable, and accessible cities. Got a comment there from Highlander. It's almost sunglass holder time, and I don't think any of us viewers can spell. I'm the worst, LOL. Well, without Richard here, I'm afraid that I don't even have one of those sunglass holders here on my table.
Yeah, I have one. I don't know if you guys will see it here. Sunglass cases for sale. GrooveMotors.com.
Well, yeah, that wasn't bad. It wasn't quite as colorful as Richard.
No, Richard likes to get in there and get all crazy with his.
Yeah, he definitely creates a lot of suspense, mystique, and engagement.
Yeah, we do have some updates coming, hopefully this week, though, on other merchandise. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, excellent. All right. So NVIDIA apparently is shipping 900 tons of H100 AI GPUs. A GPU is a graphic processing unit, and it's a specialized processor that was originally designed to do graphic rendering. GPUs can process many pieces of data simultaneously. Isn't the GPU also the main ingredient of the crypto mining?
Yeah, it helps a lot with crypto. It's kind of calmed down recently because some of the crypto, like Ethereum, was the big one that has had a massive change in how it functions. But I think Bitcoin and some of the big ones still use it.
And for those of you unfamiliar with NVIDIA, it's one of the stocks that has gone crazy during the AI explosion. One of my sons is in it, and he's pleased as can be. He's now worried about taxes and how to handle that, and which is a good problem to have, I guess. But anyway, what does 900 tons of AI GPUs mean? And that was just this quarter, by the way. It amounts to 300,000 units. And this was disclosed by a research firm, Omdia, which highlights NVIDIA's dominance in the AI space and its progress toward the company's goal of shipping 1.5 million to 2 million AI GPUs by 2024. So we're going to go from 300,000 to 1.5 to 2 million in 2024. And that, I'm assuming, is per quarter to match what they did in this last quarter. These GPUs, by the way, have been instrumental in achieving these record-breaking sales figures and, of course, stock valuation, creating a strong monopoly in the industry. This signifies exciting times for NVIDIA as it continues to lead in AI GPU shipments. All right. AI in art and creativity. Here's another cool article. Microscale internal combustion engines power insect robots. Now, this one had me going there. We're using ice and insect robots. Apparently, they've developed this product. It is an insect-sized robot that's featured in Science and exhibits the ability to jump 59 centimeters vertically. Now, remember, it's an insect. So 59 centimeters is over a half a meter, which is pretty good. And it can carry a load 22 times its own weight while walking. Certainly sounds like an insect, doesn't it? Scientists intend to apply this combustion actuator technology to create stronger and more agile robots with large-scale variable recruitment musculature. This development could potentially lead to dexterous and rapid land-based hybrid robots, enhancing various applications. Of course, the instant I heard internal combustion engine combined with hybrid, I'm immediately saying, guys, it's the wrong direction.
Going on another rant.
Yeah, exactly. Why not make this all electric rather than go through the trouble of creating an ICE engine on a miniature scale to put into an insect-sized robot? Seems to me a complete waste of engineering talent. And you can have a AC or even a DC motor do this far more elegantly, far more efficiently, and far less expensively. But there you have it. All right. Snappy.ai is what this is, and this is an AI-powered tool. I'm sorry, I'm on the next topic now. We got rid of the insects here, so I hope you're not tying the two together. Snappy.ai is an AI-powered tool that streamlines video and audio content creation. It automates tasks like, and this is going to be music to our social media team's ears, it automates tasks like trimming, editing, removing silent parts from videos and audio, and making content creation more efficient. They say users can now generate engaging content for platforms like YouTube, Reels, TikTok, podcasts, and much more. Do we do anything on Reels? That one caught me by surprise.
Yeah, we post Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels. We post both on both.
Oh, okay. So in general, they're talking about Reels on different platforms, not a single. Okay, I thought maybe this was another one of those new platforms that we're not exposed to yet or not on yet.
It's just another word for shorts. Some people call them shorts. Some people call them Reels.
Okay. Noise GPT. We're almost through the news items here, and then I've got an interesting one for you, and this is going to be quite controversial coming up here. Noise GPT is a decentralized AI platform that promotes freedom of speech by avoiding bias and censorship. Now, it's going to be music to some of these detractors with AI. It offers hyper-realistic text-to-speech, human-like dialogue bots, and voice cloning from short audio clips. It is used in content creation, podcasts, advertising, and more. The Noise GPT token supports ecosystem growth. So those of you interested, Google Noise GPT, all one word. All right, so one of the main topics that we wanted to cover in this AI podcast this morning is just recently, 17 authors, including George Martin, the authors, and the Authors Guild, are suing OpenAI for copyright infringement.
George R.R. Martin, yeah.
George R.R. Martin, yes. What does the RR stand for?
I don't know. It's kind of like a JR token thing, I think.
Okay, but most people would know him by that name then. The fantasy novelists behind the Game of Thrones series and from Software's Elden Ring joins the likes of John Grisham, well-known author, Guild President Scott Turow, and Jodi Picoult in filing the complaint.
It's George Raymond Richard Martin.
Raymond Richard, okay. They must have had some family members they wanted to bury in the middle name there. Usually it's just one.
Yep.
And then you have more kids and you can grab the rest of the names as well. But maybe he was a single child and they needed to cram all of them into that. Well, anyway, I'm going off on a rant here. Sorry. The initial complaint, all right, which the group of authors filed in New York's Southern District, claims that OpenAI, now get this, copied the author's work by using it to train its AI tools like ChatGPT without permission. Well, that's going to be tough to prove, but they're embarking on this path. This group, lauded fiction writers, isn't the first to sue OpenAI and other AI-focused businesses. At the end of this, by the way, I'm going to read you what OpenAI's response was. And it was a marvel of dodging and weaving. It was extremely well written without taking any position because obviously this is going legal.
Probably written by ChatGPT.
A good point. They say that this statement does not mince words, claiming that these large language models, known as LLMs, can spit out derivative works, material that is based on, mimics, summarizes, or paraphrases the plaintiff's works, and harms the market for them. A little bit of envy there. You know, I got to insert something at this point. All right. I've got an ego. Everybody's got an ego, and mine is huge. And I write a lot of scripts for our videos, and it's part of my business is to write responses and communicate in written form. So I feel I've gotten pretty good at it, but I agonize over it. I've got OCD when it comes to writing text and answering emails, and I write and rewrite. So the other day, we knew that we wanted to create a poll on Twitter for the 3 Chinese roadsters, and we wanted Elon to weigh in on this and create a poll that basically says, do you think that Elon should buy these 3 roadsters and put one in each of his gigafactories? And if so, please vote yes or no. So I wrote this nice synopsis. And the more I write, the longer it gets because I want to explain everything. And Jesse said, why are you doing this? Put it in ChatGPT 4.
Mm-hmm. One simple sentence.
It was standing there. And it did it, and it was superb. In fact, we're using it. We'll talk later on about how you can, in fact, if you want to throw it up now. If you guys
let me pull it
want to
up. I can pull up the view of it here.
But the bottom line is ChatGPT 4, and this is the first iteration, never disappoints. It always amazes. It always puts my ego in check, and we end up using it. And there it is. The last line is the best one, I thought. It says, your move, Elon.
Yeah, and all of this that you see on the screen here, from the hashtags to the emojis to the way it's written and even that playful kind of, challenge, your move, Elon, at the end, all of that was 100% ChatGPT. We didn't adjust this at all. We made a couple of changes to this sentence right here, just like the gigafactories instead of our gigafactories. We made
Yeah.
one or two little text changes, but this thing spit out almost the perfect poll.
Verbatim. Yes,
If you
exactly.
you want to go vote on it, this is on Pete's Twitter, so it's on Pete_Gruber on Twitter. You can go vote. We have a little over 470 votes, and it's going to run for the rest of the week.
Our goal here is these 3 roadsters, and we'll talk about them a bit more later, I suppose, but they shouldn't be put on the road. Why? If you want a daily driver roadster, we've got dozens of them out on our free roadster matchmaking site. Get yourself the color of choice and all that. These are collector cars, and we're hoping that they're going to end up in museums, that they're not going to have miles accrued on them, and they're going to be there for display as what value they truly have, which is one of extremely rare collector cars, barn find roadsters, orphans that were discovered 13 years after they went to China for almost nefarious purposes. It's kind of like they were sent there for an autopsy. And they were alive. That's the rough spot. Fortunately, the company that was going to perform the autopsy, get some intellectual property, do the reverse engineering, went bankrupt before they were able to dissect these cards. So we feel that they have a special place in history and should be preserved. And I'd like to see nothing more than these being front and center in these large, massive Tesla factories, or even SpaceX for that matter, to tie it all back together to the car that started the EV revolution and started Tesla. So with 470 votes so far, I don't think we're going to attract a lot of interest yet, but hopefully this will get viral enough to where this reaches some of the decision makers within Tesla. So anyway, getting back to these tools like ChatGPT and this lawsuit. If you're an artist, I don't think anybody's going to be able to replicate, some of these stand-up comedians because they have a very distinct style. But having said that, why not? We may find that AI can do an even better job in some of these.
Well, here's the thing, Pete, real quick. I gotta insert this part. So I was talking with ChatGPT about this article, and this one maybe, I don't know, a few days ago. I asked it, how long would it take a professional writer who's somebody their whole job is just writing? How long would it take someone to a professional writer to perfectly emulate Ernest Hemingway?
Yeah.
And ChatGPT spit out a pretty detailed response, but basically it came up with a really professional writer could do it maybe in a few months to maybe a year or two to get something very, very close, but probably would never get really indistinguishable. Then I asked it, how long would it take you to do it as an advanced AI system? And it said that while it doesn't understand emotion and some of the emotion may be off, it could virtually generate something virtually indistinguishable instantly.
Something that would pass the Turing test. Is it human? Is it machine?
Yeah, instantly. So coming up with jokes along the same lines as Kathy Griffin or some of these people that are suing OpenAI, I think it's probably very easy for it to emulate that style.
Now, of course, as these plaintiffs are alleging, of course it can, because they're copying us.
Right.
It's our stuff. Mm-hmm. It's our style. And, when you talk about style, you have people like George Carlin, very unique stand-up style. You have people like Rodney Dangerfield. Those people don't come along often. But I would love to see AI, come up with something like that would be just as engaging and perhaps even copy.
Well, this goes to that other thing you were talking about, too, with the union. The union that's striking in Hollywood. They've been striking for months now.
Yeah. Terrible timing.
Yeah, they could, in my opinion, the writers, if you feed in all of the last 4 or 5 years of work of one particular writer into this system, it's going to be able to write like that writer almost indistinguishably. So
sure,
you could very, very easily replace people without having to have them agree to anything.
Right.
So,
and of course, this is going to rise through the courts, and I just can't imagine that anyone's going to be able to weigh in on any kind of legal precedents or decisions on how to address this or how to handle it. And like you had said earlier, this may get to the Supreme Court, and we've got another Roe versus Wade controversy that is brewing. But in the meantime, what they're saying is that tools like ChatGPT and DAL-E have been lightning rods for controversy regarding legal issues since they first rose to prominence. And of course, there's very little legal precedence in courts to work with. However, a judge's ruling on copyright-based AI lawsuit from last month may point to the future of this and other similar filings. And this was August 14th, a district judge, Beryl Howell, upheld a U.S. Copyright Office finding that AI art could not be copyrighted. Now, again, that's today. That's with our understanding. And what I throw in here is, all right, we're moving toward cyborgs. We're moving toward augmentation. My cell phone is an augmentation, a connection to my brain, basically. And as we become more cyborg-like, where body parts are even replaced, the distinction between bioorganisms and machine is going to blur. And eventually we may discard, the bioorganism. It's no longer efficient, productive enough. And now, how do we then handle these types of lawsuits? Who's doing what to whom? It's kind of like driving. Well, I've got full self-driving. I'm in the back seat. I wasn't driving. Why are you pulling me over, officer? And why do I get that ticket? A lot of different, exciting new findings here, I think. But what they talk about is, so this judge ruled that AI could not be copyrighted, and this finding dates back to 2018 when the Copyright Office claimed that the nexus between the human mind and creative expression, or the connection between those two, is critical to the grounds of copyright protection. While this ruling deals differently, or deals in different specifics regarding AI and copyright law, the New York Southern District has already been known to take action against AI in previous non-copyright related instances. And what they're talking about here is that attorney.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, there was an attorney in New York that apparently relied on ChatGPT in lieu of doing his own research, or his team doing their own research. And the judge felt that they acted with a subjective bad bias or bad faith in violating Rule 11. Well, Rule 11 is, and let me get down here. We're not trying to turn this into a legal discussion, but here we go. So this district judge, this was June 22nd of 2023. Rule 11 of the Federal Rule of Civil Procedure, Just Castell wrote, the filing of papers without taking the necessary care in their preparation is an abuse of the judicial system that is subject to Rule 11 sanction. An attempt to persuade a court or oppose an adversary by relying on fake opinions is an abuse of the adversary system. They also added the court ultimately held that the attorney, in using and relying on ChatGPT in lieu of their own research, acted with subjective bad faith in violating this Rule 11. And there was a fine of $5,000. And the judge did point out, since this is a first, he is getting off lightly for their actions. So there was a threat. There's going to be some more money involved in the future if any of this continues to gain any momentum.
One thing to remember, too, is this has not made it all the way up. We're talking about, I think, just district courts at this point in various sections. So I think that when we're talking about companies like OpenAI and other, like Google, other companies that have endless money, we're probably going to see it go all the way to the Supreme Court on appeals and all this other stuff. So I don't think we have a real actual precedent set yet for AI and whether it can or cannot be copywritten.
Yeah.
Because those lower courts could easily be overruled.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to watch this thing evolve and bounce back and forth, and it may reach the top court at some point in time, and they still don't know what to do because AI is evolving. Of course, if they're using AI augmentation and they're getting advice from AI, that problem may be solved. Maybe AI will come up with the solution.
Well, Pete, what do you think about there not being a gray area anymore? If we have AI judges and AI, interpretation of the law and AI lawyers, there is no more you know, jury at that point, essentially, right? Or if you even if you have an AI jury.
Well, my personal feelings are is that the judicial system in most countries has been broke for a long time. What we
Yeah.
have is human beings weighing in on decisions like should this man go to the gas chamber or
Yeah.
the electric chair or not. And we've got human beings involved. It's kind of like the analogy I like to use. It's kind of like full self-driving. We all know that human drivers are damn crappy, dangerous drivers out on the road. And
Mm-hmm.
we know that machines and computers can do a much better job of it.
Very true.
So they continue here. There are other parties involved in the creative driven industry, such as screenwriters, actors, voice actors, comedians, musical artists, and journalists. They've also criticized AI driven tools based on similar criteria. In fact, as they mention, they say AI is a driving factor in the ongoing Writers Guild and Actors Guild strikes in Hollywood. It also has at the center of a handful of similar lawsuits issued by the likes of Sarah Silverman, Ice Cube, and Tom Brady. They have potentially threatened suits as well. Now, here's the response from OpenAI based on a request from the people that wrote this article. Creative professionals around the world use ChatGPT as part of their creative process. We respect the rights of writers and authors and believe they should benefit from AI technology. We're having the productive conversations with many creators around the world, including the Authors Guild, and have been working cooperatively to understand and discuss their concerns about AI. We're optimistic we will continue to find mutually beneficial ways to work together to help people utilize new technology in a rich content ecosystem. I don't think there's anything in that paragraph that an opposing attorney could play with or use against them.
I think so.
All right, so we're anxiously watching to see how this thing evolves. Instagram, Osama Salim says, what are the benefits of incorporating AI GPUs in EV? Well, I think it's already in place. You know, the camera systems, the data it's collecting,
Yeah.
full self-driving.
Full self-driving is the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Automating all the what you talk sometimes about automating the service. That's
Mhm.
another benefit where it could automatically know what's wrong with it and fix itself or dispatch itself.
Intelligent cars, self-diagnosing cars, reducing the load at the service centers, reducing the skill level required, which is virtually absent in the current car repair business. In EVs anyway. YouTube, Highlander, he says, how do I get this Chat GPT thing? Here's where Jesse comes in. He got it for us.
Yeah, so if you just go on Google and search OpenAI or search Chat GPT, like Greg, Paul, Tom, then you'll be able to find it there. I can pull it up and show you the link here in just a minute.
Perfect. And what's the monthly charge for that, roughly?
There's different tiers to it, but the lower end tier, if you're using it pretty regularly, I think it's $19 a month.
Okay. All right. By the way, I endorse it completely, totally, even for a private individual. If you do any kind of writing and or just want to have fun with it, you can actually talk to AI with this thing. You can try to trick it, fool it, get it to say things it's not supposed to say. We have a lot of fun with that. And it will increasingly convince you that this technology is not only here to stay, but it is the future. And it's probably the most exciting future in our lifetime. Which takes me into some quotes here. Elon Musk says, self-driving cars are the natural extension of active safety, mind you, and obviously something that we should do. Simply said, very true. Mark Andreessen says, Google is working on self-driving cars as well, and they seem to work. I love this comment. People are so bad at driving cars that computers don't have to be very good to be much better. All right. Andrew NG says, just as electricity transformed almost everything 100 years ago, today I actually have a hard time thinking of an industry that I don't think AI will transform in the next several years. I guess you'd have to think really hard.
You have to think really hard for what?
Some industry that will not be transformed by AI. Of course, recreation activities like fishing, fly fishing, you're not going to want AI picking the best spot for you to drop. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you want to catch a fish, Yeah, who knows?
That's a good point.
All right. So another Elon Musk quote. He says, I do think there's a lot of potential if you have a compelling product and people are willing to pay a premium for that. Most people think that in the world of commodities, price rules, and whoever has the best price gets the product or gets market share. So he continues, I think that is what Apple has shown. You can buy a much cheaper cell phone or laptop, but Apple's product is so much better than the alternative, and people are willing to pay for that premium. All right.
Speaking of which, the new iPhone 15 came out this week.
Yeah.
This weekend. There were some lines that I saw of people, some streamers that I watch going to get this thing, and people were fighting over it, and the lines were all the way. It's very rare to see that these days, where you see lines all the way out the mall and hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of people.
Yeah.
But the Apple devices do it pretty much every time. It's crazy.
It fascinates me the types of business that can attract that kind of attention, like Little Miss Barbecue here in Sunny Slope, where I'm going after this podcast.
I need to go to that one, yeah.
There are lines all the way out to the street often to try to get that barbecue, and people are willing to wait a half an hour to get their, barbecued pork belly and ribs. And I got the, what was it, the sliced beef.
A brisket or something?
Brisket, that was it, yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
always
it was
good.
just juicy as can be. Anyway.
Nice.
My mouth is watering now, even thinking about it. All right, another one. Dave Waters says, predicting the future isn't magic, it's artificial intelligence. And then Henry Ford was allegedly said, or this is an Elon Musk quote, he says, when Henry Ford made cheap, reliable cars, people said, nah, what's wrong with the horse? That was a huge bet he made, and it worked. Good point. All right. So the story on the 3 Chinese roadsters is usually something that we close with, but let me grab some questions before we do that. TikTok Maths Electronics says, I like your content. Thank you. And we like you joining us. LinkedIn, Brandon Nazaki Miller says, oof, can't copy and paste links on mobile from LinkedIn. Feature request for LinkedIn. Manual typing like an old copy editor.
Yeah, I put the link for him in the chat to the poll.
Oh, gotcha.
But then I also put in there, you can just search at Pete_Gruber. So
right. Here's a good one. Niall says, by the way, I tried cloning Pete's voice some time ago, where he explains how to pronounce my Danish name in English. Sounds pretty good though, but waiting for a bug fix. He and no one else will get a copy.
That'd be interesting to hear.
Well, I assumed that it was Niles with a long I, because we had a salesman here that worked here, and he was from Scandinavia, and it was Nils, and he went by Niles. So if there's a different pronunciation, we'd certainly like to know it. Now, you have to admit, though, I don't butcher your location and where you're from as bad as Mark does. So hope I'm doing a better job. YouTube, Highlander, he says, that's back to that movie about 3 beings that pre-tell crimes.
Yeah, that's, I think he's talking about the Tom Cruise one, where it's called Minority Report.
Oh,
They use precognition to get people arrested before they even do anything.
Ah.
Kind of a terrifying movie.
Yeah, it can be. And remember, Hollywood is oftentimes prophetic. And what we see that seems unbelievable and unattainable eventually comes to reality. And the Jetsons is probably one of the best examples of that, although that was a cartoon. YouTube, Crunch to Grace Hopper, thank you for joining us. Welcome back. He says, Ingmar, shouldn't AI be able to suggest usable ways that AIs themselves be self-correcting per best of human ethical principles? Well, there's a question for an author of an AI book. Love to have you chime in. YouTube Highlander, I will be off all podcasts till this Friday. Okay, well, we'll see you Friday then.
Yeah, we'll miss you, but come on back whenever you're ready.
Yeah. And by the way, thank you for the books. They did finally arrive, and I believe it was Highlander that sent those. I have yet to read it. It is the Popular Mechanics or Popular Science.
Oh, the magazine?
Yeah, that talks about, there were two of them in there actually, but that talks about people's predisposition to stopping or not stopping properly at stop signs.
Ah, nice.
We'll bring that into the podcast once we've got that processed and read. Peter Seelan from YouTube says, I like the content today. Well, thank you. Smiley face. Instagram, that JDM boy. No hate, but you need to use green screen for background.
Yep, so we're still working on Instagram, getting that. Just so you know, you guys can go watch on YouTube or Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, basically anywhere but Instagram. We have the green screen working. We're still working with Instagram. And you'll be able to go back and watch this after the fact if you want to go see what images we were talking about.
So the bottom line on the 3 Chinese orphaned roadster, the barn find roadsters that were in a coma for 13 years, that were in the dark inside sea containers, they're here now. We've got one of them that has gone through a full analysis so far. We had it up on the lift Friday. We took the skid plates off, and some of the takeaways were that in that particular roadster, the main battery pack service plug was not pulled. There was a remote possibility that if it had been, and that main battery pack was put into a coma 13 years ago, we were going to find out whether the 18650 cells could survive without any current drain for 13 years in storage, basically. The other 2 roadsters will be pulled out this coming week, and we're hoping that we will find at least one of them with a service plug pulled so we can prove or disprove that exciting prospect that maybe the battery pack is still good. Yeah, there's some pictures of it coming off of the transporter. 45-ton crane, folks. 8,000-pound sea containers. They're 20-footers. 3,000-pound car and a 5,000-pound sea container. The other takeaway was rodents took up residence inside the car, inside the mechanical portions of the car. They couldn't get into the cabin, fortunately, because you have carpeting in there, and they could have really made a mess in there. But rodents being rodents, they sampled a bunch of things that they thought might be edible, and they seem to like insulation on certain types of wires. So we have wiring harnesses that are either chewed into or actually chewed through, which are going to need to be repaired. There are also, as I euphemistically phrased it, rodent discharge in various places on the
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, somebody did point that out, by the way. And so you've got spots on various parts like suspension components. You'll have brand new portions 3 inches away, and then some of these droppings and this discharge.
We had to battle some cockroaches too when we first opened the containers.
Cockroaches too, which might have been food for the rodents, but try as we may to find the little Tom and Jerry hole that the mouse or the rodents went in and out of, we could not, because these 20-foot sea containers were newer than the original 40-foot sea containers that they were in. So we have no idea at this point what size holes there were that it would allow these rodents to get in. But it's well known that at the Chinese docks, they do have rodent infestations, and it sounds like they've never heard of barn cats, that you intentionally do not feed, and they go out and forage and hunt their own food, and probably do quite well, considering all of the things that are at docks. So for those of you interested that want to see some of the pictures of the insides of the cars, if you go to Facebook, a group called Tesla Roadster Owners Group, we've been posting pictures there, probably about 50 or so, and you can see what's going on inside the car. You'll see some of the people's comments, what they suggest happens from here.
That's the group, and we've also got them. Aaron's been releasing a bunch of stuff on the Gruber Motor Company page as well.
Okay, that's also on Facebook.
Yeah.
Are we releasing those images on Instagram or Twitter yet? Okay.
Yeah, we're releasing on Instagram as well, and then also on your Twitter. We've released some on the GMC Twitter, and then also on YouTube. We did our 3-minute little intro video that's out there. It's got a few thousand views now as well.
And that explains what the brief origin is of these cars, how they eventually turned up. Now, the quandary we're in, there's PPF problems, for example. How much repairs do you do? How much of the engineering upgrades do you do? There are problems in the PEM, for example. If these cars will never be driven, what's the point in changing the main propulsion battery? Should the wiring harnesses be repaired if the car is never driven? And in the world of car collecting, in ice, with the ice vehicles, the rules of engagement for preserving collectability and originality are fairly well laid out because we've had many decades of examples. These are electric vehicles, and they're different. The drivetrains are completely different. So the quandary now is going to be, what needs to be repaired? Cosmetic is what we're thinking more than likely. The old PPF will be taken off. They'll be made nice and shiny. But again, the final determining factor, in our opinion, is going to be the final successful bidder who gets to call the shots about what happens with these cars and how much, if any, repairs are done, or will they be left exactly the way that they were discovered. So if you're interested and want to chime in, visit any of those sites, leave your comments, even on our YouTube video. We'd love to hear what your ideas and thoughts are. And if you haven't received, or if you haven't heard our earlier plea for voting, out on my personal Twitter site, we have a poll that basically allows you to weigh in on, should Elon buy these cars, put them in each of the gigafactories, because after all, they are the car that started the EV revolution. They are the first generation Teslas, and there's a strong DNA that attaches itself to anything Tesla. One final one, Highlander, he says, yes, it was me. It was 1957, the hydrogen story. Okay, excellent. Thank you for those two magazines, and we'll bring those to the next podcast and be able to talk about those. We really appreciate everyone joining us for this AI Podcast Sunday. Next podcast is going to be Tuesday. We've got a special guest, John Springer, which is with the Silicon Valley Tesla Group. They do a weekly podcast as well. There are 4 folks on that one. He'll be joining us Tuesday morning, and we'll get the backstory on what motivated him to do his podcast, what kind of things they cover, and just get his ideas on some of these current events going on in the EV world. Wednesday, we've got the Tesla Roadster podcast. Thursday, another EV podcast. And then Friday is the Critical Power podcast, which is the other team. And they'll talk to you about everything that we do in the critical power space and what's going on in that world. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.